When it comes to the most haunting and melancholy country songs, Hank Williams' Lost Highway is always one of the first names that comes to mind. Hank's mournful voice has turned it into a legend, an anthem for lost souls. But here's a surprising fact that few people know. The man who actually wrote the lyrics about that endless road was a man who had never seen a highway in his life. His name is Leon Payne, known as the blind balladist. He is one of the greatest yet unsung songwriters, the man behind not only Lost Highway but many other classic hits. However, his name is often overshadowed by the stars who sang his songs. Today we will tell the story of Leon Payne, a genius who turned darkness into light and pain into timeless art. To truly appreciate the unique artistry and profound impact of Leon Payne, we must first transport ourselves back to the world that shaped him, a time and place etched into the very soul of his music. He was born on June 15, 1917, in the small, unassuming town of Alba, Texas. This was an era teetering on the cusp of immense change, yet for many in the rural South, life moved at a slower, more deliberate pace, deeply rooted in community, agriculture, and the rhythms of nature. The First World War had just ended. The Roaring Twenties were about to begin. But in places like Alba, the daily grind remained largely untouched by the glitz and glamour emanating from distant cities. Life was hard, unvarnished, and often unforgiving. It was a world where self-reliance was not merely a virtue, but a necessity, and where hardship was a common, often shared experience. For Leon, however, the world quickly became more difficult than it had been for his peers. Leon Payne was blinded as an infant, believed to have been caused by ophthalmia neonatorum, a common eye infection of the time. A child just beginning to explore the vibrant colors and complex textures of the world, suddenly plunged into eternal darkness. The loss of sight in childhood is a profound, life-changing event, forcing a person to reorient his entire existence immediately and drastically. Yet it was in this darkness that another sense, another dimension of perception, began to awaken and flourish within him, an extraordinary ability to listen, feel, and translate the subtle mosaic of human emotions into sounds and stories. His early education was, by necessity, at the Texas School for the Blind in Austin. This institution, far from being a place of limitation, became a crucible for his burgeoning talents. It was here, surrounded by others who understood his unique challenges, that he not only learned the practical skills for navigating a sighted world, but also truly discovered his innate musicality. The school fostered an environment where auditory learning and performance were paramount, and Leon thrived. He mastered several instruments, including the piano, drums, and guitar. But it was the guitar, with its intimate connection to the human voice and its narrative potential, that truly captivated him. He didn't just play notes, he made the instrument sing, transforming its wooden body into an extension of his own expressive soul. It was also during these formative years that he developed an unparalleled ear for music, an ability to discern melodies, harmonies, and lyrical structures with astonishing precision. This acute auditory perception, honed by necessity, would become the cornerstone of his songwriting genius. He listened to the world in a way few others could, internalizing its rhythms, its sorrows, and its quiet joys, filtering them through his unique perspective and preparing to pour them out in song. This period of intense musical immersion and personal growth laid the vital groundwork for the extraordinary career that lay ahead, a career that would profoundly shape the landscape of country music, even if his own name remained largely unsung. Leon Payne's professional journey began not with a bang, but with the quiet hum of commitment to his craft. After leaving the Texas School for the Blind, he didn't seek the solitary life that might have been expected for someone with his disability. Instead, he plunged headfirst into the vibrant, often chaotic world of professional music. His early career saw him touring with various bands across the American South, a grueling, demanding existence for any musician, let alone one who couldn't see the winding roads or the faces in the smoky dance halls. These were often humble venues, small-town theaters, roadside honky-tonks, community dance halls, where musicians earned their keep by sheer talent and tireless performance. It was a rigorous apprenticeship, honing his stage presence, his instrumental skills, and his ability to connect with diverse audiences through the power of his voice and his music. He soaked up the sounds, the stories, and the unspoken emotions of the working-class people who filled these venues, all of which would later enrich his songwriting. His talent, though undeniable, didn't immediately propel him to stardom. He was a working musician, building his reputation one performance at a time. The turning point, the moment that truly launched his career into the wider public consciousness, came when he became a beloved guest artist on major stages like the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville. For any country music artist, playing the Opry was the pinnacle, the ultimate validation. It was a sacred stage broadcasting live across the nation, bringing country music into millions of homes. Leon became a regular performer, captivating audiences with his smooth, earnest baritone voice and his masterful guitar playing. He was billed as the Blind Balladeer, a moniker that highlighted his extraordinary talent in the face of his physical challenge, drawing both admiration and genuine respect from listeners. While his Opry performances were well received and he enjoyed a respectable career as a recording artist, cutting several singles of his own, the true depth of his genius lay not in his performance but in his prolific and profound songwriting. It was through his pen that Leon Payne would leave an indelible mark on country music history, crafting a catalog of songs that would become classics, sung by some of the genre's biggest stars. He possessed an uncanny ability to distill complex emotions into simple, evocative language, creating narratives that resonated deeply with the common man and woman. He wrote about themes that were universal: heartbreak, redemption, wanderlust, and the often grim realities of life and love. One of his earliest and most enduring hits was "I Love You Because," a tender, heartfelt ballad of unconditional love that would become a huge crossover hit for artists like Elvis Presley and most famously Jim Reeves. The song's simple yet profound declaration of love, expressed without reservation, touched millions of hearts and became a staple at weddings and romantic occasions. It showcased Payne's remarkable versatility, his ability to craft both despairing narratives and soaring declarations of affection with equal skill. But it was a different kind of song, one steeped in the darker currents of life that would truly cement his legacy and, ironically, overshadow his own name for decades. The story of Lost Highway is perhaps the most famous and poignant example of Leon Payne's songwriting genius. The genesis of this iconic song is steeped in the kind of folklore that often surrounds country music classics. The most widely accepted account is that Payne wrote Lost Highway in 1948 after a chance encounter on a cold, desolate winter night. He was driving with his wife Myrtle from Dallas to a gig in Abilene, Texas, when their car broke down on a deserted stretch of road. As they waited for help, a figure emerged from the darkness, a weary, defeated man trudging along the highway, clearly down on his luck, perhaps on his way to nowhere or running from something. The man shared his story, a tale of bad choices, of a life gone astray, of a lost highway he was condemned to walk. Payne, with his acute ear for human suffering and his ability to see beyond the surface, absorbed every word, every nuance of despair. He later recounted that the entire song, from its haunting melody to its stark poetic lyrics, poured out of him in a single inspired burst. I'm a rolling stone, all alone and lost. For a life of sin, I have paid the cost. When I crossed that highway, I was on the wrong road. I'm a lost soul, a lost highway. The lyrics painted a vivid, almost cinematic picture of a life irrevocably damaged by poor decisions, of a soul trapped in a cycle of regret and despair. It was a song that spoke to anyone who had ever felt lost, anyone who had ever made a choice they couldn't unmake, anyone who had ever seen their life veer off course. Payne recorded Lost Highway himself in 1948, and it was a minor hit. However, its true destiny was realized when it fell into the hands of the undisputed hillbilly Shakespeare, Hank Williams. Williams, who was famously struggling with his own demons of addiction and a chaotic personal life, heard the song and immediately recognized its raw, aching authenticity. It resonated with him on a deeply personal level, becoming in essence the soundtrack to his own unraveling. He recorded it in 1949, and his intensely emotional, gravelly rendition transformed it into an instant classic. Hank Williams's version became the definitive interpretation, cementing the song's place in the pantheon of country music. For generations, Lost Highway has been inextricably linked with Hank Williams, a testament to his powerful performance, but also, and more importantly, to the universal timeless truth embedded in Leon Payne's original words and melody. It's a bitter irony that the song that would define so much of Williams's tragic legacy and become one of country music's most enduring anthems was penned by a man who, despite his own hardships, found a way to navigate life with an often unseen resilience. The success of Lost Highway wasn't a fluke. Payne continued to write a string of hits for himself and other artists, showcasing his incredible range. He penned the novelty song I Wanna Be With You Always, which became a massive hit for Lefty Frizzell. He also wrote You've Still Got a Place in My Heart, a beautiful, enduring ballad. His work was characterized by its lyrical clarity, its emotional honesty, and its melodic accessibility. He understood the power of a simple, direct phrase to convey profound feeling, a skill that made his songs resonate with a wide audience. Yet, despite his prolific output and the widespread success of his compositions, Leon Payne's own star never shone as brightly as those he wrote for. He remained a respected, admired figure within the Nashville songwriting community, but outside of that inner circle, his name was largely unknown to the general public. He was the blind balladeer, a beloved performer on the Opry, but never the headliner whose name graced marquees across the nation. This was a common plight for many brilliant songwriters of his era. The focus was always on the singer, the charismatic performer, rather than the quiet craftsman behind the scenes. Payne, by all accounts, accepted this with a quiet grace. His passion was the creation itself, the act of bringing a song into existence, rather than the adulation that followed. He found his joy and his purpose in the meticulous construction of lyrics, the crafting of melodies, and the weaving of stories that would touch hearts, regardless of whose voice delivered them. Leon Payne's life, for all its musical triumphs, was also deeply marked by personal stories and emotional impacts that truly humanize him beyond the label of blind balladeer. His wife, Myrtle S. Payne, was not just his companion. She was his steadfast anchor, his eyes to the world, and an integral part of his creative process. While he could play instruments and navigate familiar surroundings with remarkable independence, Myrtle's presence on the road Reading him song ideas, taking dictation, and providing practical support was invaluable. Their partnership was a testament to love, trust, and shared ambition. One poignant anecdote, often recounted by those who knew them, was how Myrtle would describe the landscapes they traveled through, the changing colors of the sky, the fields of cotton or corn, the bustling cityscapes, allowing Leon to construct vivid mental images that he would then weave into his lyrics. He saw the world through her descriptions and through the rich tapestry of his own inner perception. This intimate collaboration underscores the emotional depth and shared experience embedded in his work. His songs were not just born of his own heart, but also nurtured by the love and devotion of his partner. Another emotionally striking aspect of Payne's character was his unyielding resilience and positive outlook, despite his profound disability. While Lost Highway painted a picture of bleak despair, Leon himself was rarely consumed by self-pity. Those who worked with him described a man with a keen sense of humor, a gentle demeanor, and an almost preternatural ability to connect with people on an emotional level. He possessed a warmth and an inner light that seemed to defy his external darkness. He learned to navigate the world with incredible independence, relying on his other senses and his sharp intellect. He famously would say, "I can see more than most people, just not with my eyes." This wasn't just a clever phrase, it was a philosophy, a testament to his belief that true vision comes from within, from the heart, and from understanding the human condition. This profound self-acceptance and inner strength likely contributed to his ability to write songs that resonated so deeply with universal emotions. He understood suffering, but he also understood the enduring capacity for hope and love. His later years also revealed a touching story of continued contribution to the community that had given him so much. Despite his fading health, he remained dedicated to the Texas School for the Blind, where he had found his musical calling. He often returned to perform, to inspire, and to share his story with new generations of visually impaired students. He became a living embodiment of what was possible, a beacon of hope for children facing similar challenges. He didn't just tell them to follow their dreams, he showed them how, demonstrating that a perceived limitation could, in fact, open doors to an entirely different, perhaps even richer, way of experiencing and creating in the world. These personal acts of mentorship and continued engagement speak volumes about the man behind the music, a man whose generosity of spirit matched his immense talent. He understood the impact his story could have, and he embraced the responsibility of being a role model, leaving behind not just a catalog of timeless songs, but also a legacy of inspiration and unwavering courage. While Leon Payne's talent was widely acknowledged within the music industry, and his songs were immensely popular, his story isn't entirely free of complexity, particularly concerning the narrative of Lost Highway. The song's definitive association with Hank Williams, while a testament to Williams's iconic performance, has sometimes led to a historical blurring of the lines regarding authorship. For decades, many casual fans and even some historians mistakenly attributed Lost Highway solely to Hank Williams, due to its deep resonance with his public persona and tragic life story. The prevailing narrative often focused on how Williams made the song his own, almost implying a co-creation rather than a powerful interpretation. This subtle shift in perception inadvertently diminished Payne's singular role as the original visionary creator. It highlights a recurring theme in music history. The songwriter, though the wellspring of the art, often remains in the shadow of the performer. In Payne's case, his blindness may have inadvertently contributed to this oversight. Without the visual presence, the charismatic stage persona that often cements an artist's name in the public consciousness, it was easier for the song to be absorbed into the performer's legend. However, it's crucial to understand that Hank Williams himself never claimed authorship of Lost Highway. He always openly credited Leon Payne. The issue isn't Williams's integrity, but rather the collective memory and the way stories are distilled and sometimes simplified over time. The consequences and historical significance of Leon Payne's life and music stretch far beyond the individual hits he penned. His story is a powerful testament to the transformative power of art and the indomitable nature of the human spirit. First and foremost, his work fundamentally shaped the sound and lyrical landscape of country music, particularly during its post-war golden age. He demonstrated that songs could be both deeply personal and universally relatable, touching on themes of despair and hope, love and loss, with an authenticity that transcended his physical limitations. His ability to craft narratives that spoke directly to the everyday struggles of working-class Americans gave a voice to countless individuals who felt unheard. Lost Highway, in particular, became more than just a song. It evolved into a cultural touchstone. Its raw, unflinching depiction of self-destruction and regret resonated with generations, not just within country music, but across genres. It has been covered by rock bands, folk artists, and punk musicians, proving its timeless appeal and its universal message. The song became an anthem for those on the fringes, for anyone wrestling with their demons, and its bleak honesty paved the way for future artists to explore darker, more complex themes in their music. It broke down barriers, proving that vulnerability could be a source of immense artistic strength. Beyond his songwriting, Leon Payne's life holds immense inspirational significance. As the blind balladeer, he defied the profound societal limitations placed upon individuals with disabilities in his era. His journey from an orphaned, blind child in rural Texas to a celebrated Grand Ole Opry performer and a prolific hit songwriter is a testament to sheer willpower, talent, and resilience. He taught countless others, particularly visually impaired children, that a physical disability does not define one's potential or diminish one's capacity for greatness. His life became a living example that true vision comes from within, from an inner clarity and an unshakable belief in one's abilities. His regular visits to the Texas School for the Blind weren't just performances, they were powerful lessons in overcoming adversity, demonstrating that the lost highway was not an inevitable path, but merely one of many choices. He taught us that imagination, empathy, and the power of creative expression can illuminate even the darkest corners of existence. The final chapter of Leon Payne's life was not one of fading relevance or quiet retirement. He remained a vibrant creative force even after stepping away from the relentless pace of Nashville. He and his beloved wife, Myrtle, had settled in San Antonio, Texas, bringing his story full circle, back to the state that had first shaped his worldview. In Texas, he was more than just a songwriter. He was a local legend, a radio personality, and a continued presence in the music scene. He never stopped writing, his mind a perpetual fountain of melody and poignant observation. To those around him, it seemed the quiet craftsman would go on forever, weaving his tales of love and sorrow. But the end came not with a long fade, but with a sudden, shocking silence. On September 11, 1969, Leon Payne suffered a fatal heart attack. He was only 52 years old. For a man who had navigated a lifetime of darkness and hardship with such enduring grace, his sudden passing felt particularly cruel and premature. The blind balladeer, whose voice had brought comfort and whose words had given language to unspoken emotions, was gone. The heart that had so deeply understood the landscape of human feeling had given out. The news of his death sent a wave of shock and profound sadness through the Nashville community. While he was living in Texas, his presence was still deeply felt on Music Row. He was not just a contemporary, he was a foundational pillar, one of the architects of the modern country song. Artists who had built their careers on his compositions, from the established legends to the up-and-coming singers who still studied his work, felt the loss acutely. For the tight-knit community of songwriters, it was the loss of a patriarch, a master of the craft whose genius was matched only by his humility. The industry's respect was swift and decisive. In 1970, the year after his death, Leon Payne was posthumously inducted as one of the very first members of the newly created Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame. It was a profound statement. This was not an artist rediscovered decades later. His monumental contribution was immediately recognized and immortalized by his peers. It was their way of saying that even in death, his place among the giants was secure and undeniable. Leon Payne's legacy is a treasure trove of timeless songs that shaped the careers of legends like Hank Williams, while also honoring the quiet but essential role of the songwriter, the true soul behind each song. His story proves that the greatest adversity can be the greatest strength. It was his blindness that allowed him to see into the human heart with such depth, transforming pain and love into melodies that touch us all. Leon Payne may have lived in the shadows, but his music has and will forever help us see ourselves more clearly.